Arianna, our theme this year is finding your new power, and I can't think of anyone who embodies that more than you. You have, over the course of your career, just reinvented yourself multiple times, and not only that, but you have had this nose of going where the zeitgeist is headed. So you founded the Huffington Post, which pioneered a new wave of online opinion journalism that became standard. You left it a year ago to found Thrive Global, which many people were surprised at the time. The wellness train has just continued to speed through the culture. And in April 2016, you joined the board of Uber, which at the time was the hottest, and maybe again, company coming out of Silicon Valley. So you have just had this ability to do these things. So let me start with Thrive, which you, as I said, last year started. What led you to do that, and what led you to think that the time was right last year to take that risk and to launch this platform?
It was a really tough decision, and I know many of you have been through similar tough moments. I love HuffPost. It's like my third child. I have 2 daughters and HuffPost, so I really believed I would never leave it. It had grown to be a big media company in 13 countries. But ever since my own collapse from burnout in 2007, and my 2 books on the subject, Thrive and The Sleep Revolution, I became more and more passionate about spreading the message beyond speeches and writing to help companies and individuals create thriving cultures in their lives, and to show how there is an absolute connection between well-being and performance. We're living under this delusion that burnout is the price we must pay for success. And frankly, this was how workplaces were designed by men. And it's not working. It's not working for women, it's not working for men, it's not working for polar bears. So I think...
Our conference is created by women, and yet Arianna told me in the green room she thinks we should start at 8, not 7 in the morning on Tuesday.
Yes. You know, there are little things like that that actually mean that we can start the day more recharged and therefore bring more into it and take more out of it. And I find that when we work with corporations, and some of our partners are here, like Ellen Shook from Accenture and Kristen Lemkow from JP Morgan, we really find ways to demonstrate that when employers invest in their employees' well-being, it improves the bottom line. We need to show the ROI, because that's how we're going to have this spread. And what Thrive does is goes upstream. Instead of looking at the symptoms, like dealing with weight management or smoking cessation, we deal with the stress triggers that get people to overeat or to smoke or to be so stressed. And 75% of healthcare costs and healthcare problems are stress-related and preventable. So burnout is truly a global epidemic that also has huge mental health consequences.
I want to switch and ask you about Uber, which maybe you did lose a little sleep over. I don't know, maybe. But I assume everyone knows the situation with Uber over the past year. This company has been through one of the biggest cultural crises and boardroom dramas, I think, in recent memory. You are on the board. You joined in April 2016, and you really became the public face of the efforts to control things and contain them and help fix the culture. When you joined the board, it was well before this crisis erupted, but there were some signs and certainly some instances and examples that suggested that this company had a cultural problem that was beyond just being sort of Silicon Valley bro-esque. Did you have any idea that there might be some cultural problems when you joined?
I could see the problem of burnout. And in fact, before the crisis, which started in February with Susan Fowler's blog post, I had worked with the new head of HR, Leanne Hornsey, who is here, and he's been wonderful, to produce a series of Thrive programs for Uber employees, which of course I was doing pro bono, given that I was on the board. And we were ready to launch them when the crisis started. So we did launch them. We postponed it a little until things calmed down. But it was very clear that cultures fueled by burnout and that machismo being always on culture end up producing people acting out. just think of it from ourselves. There is a continuum of human behavior. And I know from me, when I'm exhausted, I'm the worst version of myself. I'm less empathetic, I'm less creative, I'm more reactive. As Kristen said in a blog post that she wrote on Thrive, she can identify all the mistakes she made, hiring mistakes, overreacting mistakes, to doing them when she was exhausted. So, of course, none of us are going to be perfect. I mean, I don't claim any perfection. We are all works in progress. But at least when we realize that our performance improves and our behavior improves, it affects both what we do and what the culture does. So that's what I started doing at Uber.
But do you think that if Travis Kalanick had slept more, these problems wouldn't have happened? I mean, I'm being serious. I'm being serious.
You know what? I think this is one of the aspects. One of the aspects is the decisions we make when we are running on empty are worse. There are a lot of other issues. Other issues have to do with what are the cultural values of the company. Is the company entirely obsessed with growth at the expense of everything else? Because that was the other problem with Uber and the problem with many Silicon Valley companies and other companies, of course. And what is super clear is that when growth is the only objective at the expense of any other purpose for the company, you end up idealizing top performers. And then top performers can get away with anything. So in my first speech at an all-hands we had 2 days after the Susan Fowler blog, I promised on behalf of the board that there would be zero tolerance for brilliant jerks at Uber. And that is really, and that is an incredibly important message to convey to everyone. Because as we knew, once we started having to fire some of these top performers, they really had come to believe that they were beyond any kind of rule. And that message spreads everywhere and affects the culture. And I came to recognize during this last 6 months of my work at Uber that culture is truly the immune system of a company. It's what allows us to deal with the viruses that are always there. There's no company that doesn't have problems. We are not going to suddenly improve human nature completely overnight. But if you have a resilient culture, you can identify these problems faster. You can deal with them faster before they become the kind of crisis that Uber has faced over the past 6 months.
So now that it's sort of, I wouldn't call it in the rearview mirror, but there is a new CEO. The board voted on some measures last week that will change the way the company is run. What are you most proud of in the way you handled this and the steps you took? And what is something you might have done differently in retrospect?
Well, I chaired the committee that oversaw Eric Holder's investigation. And that was kind of an amazing experience for me because I talked to hundreds of employees myself directly, heard their problems, and saw how when we talk about creating cultures that allow women to progress, it's not just about the numbers. It's about the environment in which they operate. I mean, I had multiple young working mothers come to me in tears saying they can't find a place to pump. It's like so simple, right? You have a big headquarters in San Francisco. Can't you create a room for women to pump? It's just not a priority. And here in Washington, when the woman actually who runs Uber America, Rachel Holt, had a baby herself, not only did they have a room to pump, she bought the best pump for everybody in the office. So when you have women at the top, they think of these things. When you don't, it becomes a struggle to get minor things like that to happen. And the fact that we were able as a board to unanimously endorse all the 47 Holder recommendations, I thought was a great achievement. I was determined that we would have unanimous approval of the recommendations. And then as the chair of the search committee for the CEO, I really wanted a unanimous vote on the CEO. I think it said a lot that we could come out of that board meeting and announce Dara, who I think has already proven to be an amazing choice, as the best CEO fully endorsed by the board.
So is there anything you would have done differently with the benefit of hindsight?
with the benefit of hindsight, I feel that I would have maybe acted faster, like what we had done to deal with burnout, we could have rolled out earlier. Instead of waiting for Liane to be in place, you know, she was hired, she and I talked, we recorded the videos that we were going to show to all the employees, the work we're going to do. But I think what is important is also to see how the cultural values of the company had become weaponized. There were like a few values that we changed at the all hands where we announced we were adopting all the Holder recommendations. One of them was being always on. Being always on is a ridiculous cultural value. It's like basically giving people permission to operate at their worst because they are letting off steam, as they call it.
So what is that value now?
It's simply eliminated. The other cultural value that we edited was working harder, smarter, longer. As I told at the all hands, Uber is a data-driven company. Working smarter and longer, all the data show us, don't go together. If you're working longer, you're not working smarter. You know that very well. You did a great, you answered the questions on the Thrive questionnaire. And you made that point, that you need to protect your own time, to do deep work, to be creative. And in fact, our media platform is there to bring all these new role models together. You know, people like Jeff Bezos saying, why am I getting 8 hours sleep a night? It's good for Amazon shareholders. The connection between being fully recharged and your decision making.
But with Uber, but just to interrupt for a second, with Uber, I mean, you know, changing the values is important. But I think symbolic as much as, you know, values are important, but how will you know when the actions, behaviors have changed? How will you know when this turnaround is a success, and how will you measure it?
Well, first of all, it's a work in progress. I now chair the committee that oversees the implementation of all these recommendations. And Liane is doing an amazing job. We are hiring a new head of diversity and inclusion. She's giving regular reports to the board. And we see the difference already. You know, you walk into the headquarters and you see the difference. We've also set processes in place where complaints can be surfaced quickly, both anonymously and directly.
We have time for, I think, one question, if anyone has one. If not, I certainly have more. Okay. Arianna, tell me just quickly, you also recruited a female board member. Tell me how that went and how it's gone so far, how it's made a difference for you to have another woman on the board.
So my first decision when I joined the board was to stop being the first woman on the board as quickly as possible, and the only woman. So I met Wan Ling in Davos. She was introduced to me by Jack Ma. She's the only woman on the Alibaba board, Wan Ling Martello. She's the CEO of Nestle in Asia and Africa. She's absolutely amazing. She and I had dinner in New York after that, and I asked her if she would be interested. And then I brought it to the board, and she was unanimously chosen to be the second woman board member. And all the data show when you get one woman on the board, you are more likely to get a second woman on the board. And now we have a third woman. Ursula Burns has joined our board. So now we're going for a fourth woman. I think it's not enough to just be saying, hey, we have one woman on the board. That's just not enough. And for me, it's just been amazing to have her there. She and I have become really close friends.
She texted right before we were going on, you're up next, XOXO. So yeah. So,
No, I was just going to say that as we're changing the culture, we are talking about a culture shift. I actually call it the third feminist revolution. You know, if you think of it, the first was about giving us the vote. The second about giving us access to every job and the top of every profession. I think the third is for all of us to say it's not enough to be at the top of the world. We need to change the world. It's not working. And we have the power. This room has the power to change it. So I would love for you to write on Thrive Global and anywhere you want. It's not about exclusivity. In fact, my new saying is ubiquity is the new exclusivity. It's about getting these messages out there, proving to women and men who are starting on their career journey, that super successful women in the arena can actually take care of themselves and also perform amazingly. That's a message that we need to get out there, and our addiction to technology is making it harder and harder for us to learn to disconnect, reconnect with ourselves, and then go back to our work much more recharged.
You were quite close with Travis Kalanick, still are, I assume. Have you talked to him recently?
Oh yes, of course, Travis is on the board.
Yeah.
So, and we have still way too many board meetings. I hope this is going to change soon. In fact, it's
You're
funny.
getting a lot more board members, too.
We're
adding
getting
6 more members.
Yes, if the SoftBank deal goes through. Okay. All these governance changes are contingent on the SoftBank deal going through. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, yes, absolutely. Travis is on the board. At the all hands where we announced Dara, my goal was to have Travis introduce Dara. As you said, symbols matter, and pass on the baton, which he did. And so that means that the board can come together, we hope, once the benchmark lawsuit against Travis is resolved or settled.
We're almost out of time, but is there anything that you feel like you have missed out on? As I said in the beginning, you've sort of been at the forefront of all these movements. Was there one thing that you think you missed?
Well, I think probably I speak for all working mothers in the room. I always feel that I miss having had more time with my daughters. And it's just, I really feel that when you're a working mother, they take the baby out and they put the guilt in. So can we all just forgive ourselves here? Can we just acknowledge that we did the best we could do? My daughters have to keep telling me, Mom, you're a great mom. You're still a great mom, but there is still that guilt about every little thing that I missed because I was working.
Arianna, thank you. Should I wear this tomorrow?
I love it. Don't you love it?
Thank you so much for being with us.